topic is probably useless for your members because you're all very wealthy. That means through the years, you've been able to accumulate wealth, open your own business, grow your businesses. Um, so maybe let's think of it as knowledge that we could impart to your members, no? Or to your employees. Why is it important? Because investing is not taught in the Philippine school system, not in K plus 12, not in university, unless, of course, you take up specific training courses. So, my presentation this afternoon will look at the foundations of wealth building, market signals and outlook that could guide you in investing or even expanding your own businesses. How do you start portfolio construction, and what are the investment products that you could put into your different portfolios? And then I'll end with what we call Kwentong BDO. It's implementing what I'll be discussing in real life situations, no, for a young, professional, a retiree, and a young parent. So let's start with the question, why don't people invest? Huh? If you think about it, in general, people don't invest. Every year there's a crisis or market volatility. So if you look at it, we have to define our objectives in investing. Huh? Um, and when we look at our wealth, we ask the question, what is wealth? No? Wealth is not your salary. No? Um, a rich person earns a lot. Is that wealth? A wealthy person's money earns even if they are asleep. Wherein every quarter there are bills to be paid. Or you say capital preservation. In your own businesses, you have to preserve the capital because the capital is what allows you to continue to operate your business and pay your salaries. No? And then eventually, as we grow older and have our own grandchildren, we think of generational transfer of wealth and assets to either our children or to our grandchildren. So probably when we invest, we have to stop asking the question, how much do I earn? And start asking the question, how much do I keep and grow? And when you think of those two questions, you have to look at your needs, your short-term needs, and you have to distinguish between your short-term and your long-term. In long-term, we think of retirement, whatever age that will be, 60, 65, 70. And we assume that during these modern days, we we are we are alive and kicking up to the age of 80 to 90 years old. So think of it, if you stop working at 60 or 55, but you will actually be living until 80 or 90, then how will you spend? How will you pay the bills for the next 15 to 20 years after you stop working? And so the main goal when you think of all of these concerns and questions is to build assets that grow faster than inflation, number one, that could buck the trend of a depreciating peso, number two, and could allow you a comfortable life similar to what you were living with when you were still working. But what works against you is inflation. Inflation and the depreciating peso tends to shrink your money's purchasing power. Inflation, defined as the increase in the price of goods and services, in the vernacular is simply pagtaas ng presyo ng mga bilihin. And so if your time deposit, let's say, pays you a net of 3%, but your inflation last April was at 7.2%, and last May was at 6.8%, in those past 2 months, clearly inflation was eating up your wealth. Huh? And so we look at time deposit or your savings passbook, and clearly inflation perennially is moving higher than what you're earning just by parking your money. So when we think of investments, our main goal is to outperform inflation, to beat inflation with assets that over time historically tend to outperform inflation. And if you could diversify, that's the second word, diversify your peso funds or peso assets in a stronger currency such as the US dollar, pound sterling, or the euro, and invest those foreign currencies in assets that also tend to outperform inflation, then over a long period of time, you would tend to preserve, if not grow, your wealth. And some of these long-term assets that outperform inflation and the savings rate would usually be global equities or stocks, REITs or real estate investment trust, and other inflation-linked instruments. Money multiplies exponentially the longer you have it invested. And that's the concept of time. And so when my clients ask me or students ask me, Pipi Fritz, when is a good time to invest? My answer is naturally, every day is a good time to invest. And the younger you start investing, the power of compounding really works in your favor. And it tends to multiply your money even more. The cost of waiting or not doing anything is enormous. Think back to when you were a fresh grad, 24, 26-year-old. The moment you start earning, you ask the question, what do I do with my disposable income? Do I, on one hand, consume, go shopping, travel, or on the other hand, invest? And in general, the answer is the first. We want to consume. We want to go shopping. We want to travel. We want to go to beautiful resorts and hotels. And so what happens is the residual after you get your salary and pay for the bills, pay for your rent, pay for your food, pay for the utility bills, the tuition fees, and then go shopping, the residual, yung tira, yung lata, is what we invest. If ever we invest it at all. Huh? More successful investors are the latter. They target a certain percentage, say 20% of your net income, and over time, that 20% moves up to a higher number, let's say 50%, as your monthly income grows. And if you think of it, if you started early, let's say at 25, and invested over a 35 or 40-year period, the power of compounding will multiply your assets even faster compared to if you would start now at 60 or 65 and we're discussing how much do I need for the next 20 years, time wouldn't be on your side. So the most powerful word in investing is not return. It is actually time. How much? How much do I invest? How much should I set aside? In the 50-30-20 rule, 50% goes to needs, 30% goes to wants, and 20% goes to the future, meaning investments and savings. And that's why I say we should always start with 20% because the 50 and 30 are also necessary. Necessary to survive, necessary to feed our families. And so starting off with 20% is a good target to shoot for. And as our monthly disposable income grows, then we can bump up the 20% to 40 and hopefully we hit 50%. But before investing, we should build a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. Ano naman ito? Anong kalokohan yan? When you think about it, if you set aside 3 to 6 months worth of emergency fund, this could be used in case of an emergency, hospitalization, ICU. In case also that you lose your job, the 3 to 6 months buffer will give you time to comfortably look for another job. And if you start off with a 3 to 6 month buffer, then after that, you could really invest for the long term. You could look at various asset classes that usually grow faster than your savings or time deposit rate. Another issue is how to do it. You know, availing of automation and various apps that both banks and financial institutions offer these days would make investing a habit, would make investing the norm, even before you start paying the bills. So when we look at Pinoy spending habits, okay, the first that is against investing is ningas kugon. Huh? We start strong but quit early. The utang trap, especially now with the digital apps. It's so easy to borrow 10, 50, 100,000. All you need to do is click. FOMO buying, no? Fear of what? Losing out. The social media hype prevents you from investing. Is not the same as the investment thesis. And then abundance wins. More money can always be made, And so we go for the scams. Huh? You know, I spend so much of my time doing this, talking in public, in physical as well as virtual events, for both students, fresh grads, and seasoned veterans such as yourselves. And yet, you know, the scams have been more successful in gathering money. Whenever you're stuck in traffic or you're bored at home, Google, you know, financial scams in the Philippines, and the list is quite long. And so scams are successful because, you know, they make earning or investing easy. Yeah. They promise you the moon and the stars. And what I always tell my students is, if it's too good to be true, then most likely it's not true. And that's where the scams are successful. They they make your mouth wet. uh, They excite you with double your money in 2 years. uh, And so you go for it, you bite into the scam, and instead of making money, instead of growing your wealth, you tend to lose it all. And that's really very sad. So why do we panic, or why do we get scared uh, in investing? Why? Because the assets that have daily price movements tend to scare us whenever the price of your investment moves down. Take, for instance, the price of PLDT. It was soaring in the 90s, but it has been plunging over the last 3 and 5 years. Or look at Globe, or look at Ayala Land today, you know. Um, and one of the questions that is very important in investing is knowing your risk appetite. The BSP once asked me, what will I do if the price of my investment moves down by 30%? Do I, number one, average down, buy some more? Letter B, sell everything? Letter C, hold and wait for it to recover? Or letter D, sue Fritz because he was the one who told me to invest? And when you look at it, while it is quite funny, all four options will tell you what your risk aversion is. If you are a risk taker, most likely your answer will be letter A. I will buy some more to average down my price. And if your answer is letter B, I will sell, then most likely you cannot withstand the volatility in the market. The sleep test. Many of my clients ask me, Fritz, nakakatulog ka pa ba? And my answer is yes, of course. How can you sleep when the market is so volatile? Ang gulo-gulo, ang ingay-ingay. And my answer there is, before we make the first move, we do our research. We study how investments or asset classes move, and we tend to manage the risk. Yung gaano kalikot yung paggalaw ng presyo ng ating mga investments. And so if the volatility is too high, then most likely I would have ulcers by now. Our goal with our clients is to allow our clients, number one, to make money, but also not to lose sleep, huh? to to manage the risk so that they can sleep soundly at night. And the solution here is to write your objectives down before investing. And whenever the markets turn against you and you start losing money, you have to read your objectives again in order to maintain your focus. Being human beings, people, we have emotions. And so I'd say that instead of market volatility, the enemy really in investing are your emotions. And the two most common emotions in investing are greed and fear. Why do you say greed and fear? Why? When you're greedy, you don't know your limits. It's already time to sell and you're still buying because you see the run up in the share price and you get greedy. You want more. The opposite is fear, takot. You know, you don't get started because you're fearful. You're scared. Instead of seeing a 10% decline as the window to get in, an opportunity, you tend to sell because you're fearful. Maybe because you got in the wrong investment product. Okay? So, Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors in Wall Street, you know, tends to move counter cyclically. He says, be greedy when others are fearful. During the global financial crisis, and the biggest banks in Wall Street, were turning upside down. That was when he bought. He bought into JP Morgan and Citibank. And when investors become greedy, as the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 continues to surge, the last 3 years, he has been selling out of the market, booking the gains. And eventually, he decided to retire this year. So, greed and fear, keeping calm, remaining focused on your objectives are probably the first emotions that you have to hurdle to be successful. Another question that is usually asked is, when is a good time to buy into the market? And for us, we say time in the market is more useful than time getting into the market. For, in general, people and funds have to be invested most of the time rather than get out more times than you can imagine. Timing the market is very important and is very difficult. Is it important? For beginners, they think timing the market is the most important ingredient for success. But for most successful investors, investing consistently and having a long-term time horizon is more important than timing the market. Actually, many studies have concluded that fund managers, no matter how big they are or how good they are, can seldom time the markets perfectly most of the time. So Rather than time it when I'll get in and when I'll get out, a more important concept is remaining the time that you are in the market, that you are invested in the market, and having a diversified portfolio that will withstand the shocks, or the volatility or the kalikutan in the market. So, as we conclude the first topic, foundations of investing, the first is the mindset. Wealth are assets that work for you, not your salary alone. Second, inflation. Inflation is the enemy of investing. Idle cash silently loses value every year. You have to remain invested to stay ahead, diversify your portfolio, so that you can get into long-term assets that outperform inflation and the savings rate. Compounding is about time that you are invested, that you are in the market. And the longer the time, the better for you. And finally, behavior, emotions, greed, and fear. Okay? Every time there are market crashes, view them as an opportunity to buy and not as an opportunity to get out. The second topic that we will discuss this afternoon are market signals and our outlook, especially amidst the Middle East conflict. And the objective here is to gain insights into market trends and what indicators can help you make sound investment decisions. So whenever I give economic briefings to my clients, both individuals as well as corporations, I usually talk about the economy, GDP, inflation, how price moves, interest rates, the cost of money, the stock market. Even if you're not in the stock market, the stock market tells you, what the sentiment is out there, what the earnings growth of the listed corporations are. And finally, the exchange rate. The exchange rate, as I mentioned, aside from inflation, could erode your peso assets or your peso-based wealth. So part of ensuring your wealth is, again, diversification away from the weak peso or the weak currency. Let's start with a basic formula. GDP. Why is it important to understand GDP? Because GDP, gross domestic product, is the economy's report card. It tells you whether the economy is expanding, growing, or shrinking. And the basic formula of gross domestic product is C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Ano daw? C is household consumption. That's you and I going shopping in the 90 SM malls nationwide. G is government spending. I is investments. Investments of the local conglomerates, of the local MSMEs, of the local members of PCCI. And X minus M is exports minus imports. Combined, this is the whole of the economy. Okay? And your decision to expand your business usually is a reflection of where gross domestic product is going. Inflation, as I mentioned earlier, is how fast prices go up. When it is going up, it is called inflation. When it is going down, it is called deflation. Okay? And when inflation is moving up, central banks tend to raise interest rates. When inflation is going down, central banks will tend to cut interest rates. Because interest rates is actually the cost of money, you know. Interest rates is the mechanism of monetary policy to either accelerate the economy by cutting interest rates or to step on the brakes, meaning they raise interest rates because raising interest rates tend to dampen household consumption and investments, and it tends to slow down the whole economy. Stock market. Why is there a stock market? A stock market is a mechanism by which companies can raise capital. You raise capital either by borrowing money through the banks or the market, or by listing your shares, in which case you monetize the value of your holdings. Okay, and all the stocks in the market react to developments in the macroeconomy. Okay, so when the economy is growing, the so-called cyclical stocks like banking and property do very well. And when the economy is slowing down, right, we are experiencing right now, you tend to reduce your property and go to defensive stocks like utilities, Meralco, Maynilad, Manila Water. And the stock market is also for investors. When you buy shares and the price goes up, you make money. When the price goes down, you lose money. But by buying dividend-paying stocks, aside from capital appreciation, you benefit from the dividend yield that the companies give back to their shareholders. Finally, exchange rate. In a global economy, the Philippines does not stand by itself. Neither does Annie or Jean. We can all move our goods and services to other countries by exporting it, or we can also import goods and services. The exchange rate is actually the price of that unit of foreign currency, say the US dollar, or the pound sterling, or the euro. And so the exchange rate is the first step to diversify your investments offshore. Step one is to buy the foreign exchange. Step two is investing that foreign exchange that you just purchased. Doing only step one, buying the dollar and keeping it in your drawer, does not help your cause. You have to do step two. After you buy the dollar, you have to invest the dollar to make sure that your diversified portfolio works in your favor. And so when you look at all of these 6 indicators in one slide, it can get kind of confusing. And that's why in all my briefings, I spent a lot of time explaining each one and how each variable affects the total picture. So for the remaining 2026, because of the Middle East conflict, in summary, we are seeing slower GDP growth, number one. Number two, higher inflation because of the high cost of fuel, gasoline, transportation of goods and services. And the inputs that the farmers will use in planting rice, corn, and other produce, such as chemicals, fertilizers, urea, potassium. All of them are up by more than 20% this year. And when the economy slows, when GDP slows, guess what? Earnings growth of the listed companies slow down as well. Entering the year without the war, the expectation was for a 10% earnings growth. And because of the war and the slower first quarter GDP, earnings now even more to 2%. So key themes in shaping 2026 and probably 2027 and 2028 are the following. Number one, how long would the Strait of Hormuz be shut down? How long would the price of oil hover at $90 per barrel? Because of insinuations that the peace is at hand, the price of oil has gone down towards $80 per barrel. That would give the Philippines some relief at the pump stations in the coming Tuesdays ahead. Second, which I believe is one of the more powerful mega trends or global trends, is AI. AI, artificial intelligence, and tech is expected to grow economic output and improve productivity of the labor force. Led by the US, Europe, and now Taiwan and Korea and China, tech and AI have started to permeate our daily lives. You see it in your cell phone, in your laptops, and therefore it's being used at work, and it's being used by your children and grandchildren at home. Third is China's deflationary risk, meaning prices are going down, output remains robust, and so China, since it cannot sell too much goods in the US because of high tariffs, has resorted to dumping goods in the Asia Pacific region. You see cheap cars from China. You see now cheap goods like solar panels from China. And eventually you'll see cheap food products from China. Because instead of shutting down their plant or laying off workers, China decided to continue to produce. And so now they are looking for markets to sell these cheaper products. And finally, it's Japan's historic shift from negative interest rates. They are now raising interest rates, and women in the labor force has brought new life and vigor to Japan's economy. And of course, the third factor is opening up Japan's country, to foreign tourists. So much so that this morning, Japan raised the price of its visa to about 11,300 pesos because the locals have started to complain. So these trends will continue to be what drives investment products higher. And so use these market signals not only, to know if it's going up or down, but really to help you make your investment decisions whether you will put all your wealth in the Philippines or if you will slowly diversify outside in favor of other currencies and other markets. The third topic I'd like to discuss this afternoon is portfolio construction and probably a discussion of some of the investment products out there. For some of you, you just give it to your banks or your fund manager and they make the decisions for you. And some of you make the decisions yourselves. So part of that decision-making process is understanding, the investment products out there in the market. So our objective in chapter 3 is to learn practical strategies for long-term wealth preservation. So how do we choose? For someone who didn't learn investing in school, some of the questions are what, where, and how. What are my investment objectives? What are my return expectations? What is my risk appetite? What is my investment horizon? Fritz, hindi ko alam. Okay? Where can I invest my assets? Simple lang yan. There are 3 letters there in the upper right corner of my screen. But joking aside, the what, where, and how will I distribute my assets are the 3 toughest questions for a first-time investor, for a beginner. Even if you're seasoned veterans in running your company, maybe you are a beginner in investing your funds or your liquid funds, your cash. So the first question we need to answer is, what are my objectives? So you need to outline your goal. No? Is it capital preservation? Is it income or growth, or a mix of income and growth? When you say it's a mix of income and growth, then you come up with a diversified strategy. Okay. So it's important to align your objectives with your personal or institutional priorities. It's important to understand your constraints as well and your liquidity requirements. How much you need every month, every quarter, or every 6 months, or every year, so that the strategy or the allocation of the cash will allow you to have liquidity or monthly, quarterly, or semi-annual inflows back into your settlement account, your CASA, your current and savings account. And then risk appetite, As I mentioned earlier, it's important that you ask yourself those basic questions like, how much risk am I really comfortable with? If my investment goes down 30%, what will I do? If it goes down 50%, what will I do? And then the investment horizon. The investment horizon, because it is time, which affects compounding, is very important. And therefore, my strategy for my BPO client, whose average age is below 30, is very different from my strategy for my mom when she was alive at 88 years old, simply because time was not on her side anymore. That she was in the so-called pre-departure area, ready to leave me behind, to leave the family behind in such short notice. So these 3 are the first questions that you have to answer for yourselves before we even move towards strategy or asset allocation. The second thing you need to understand are your options. What are the choices out there? And this slide summarizes, the basic investment products that are in the market, whether it's here in the Philippines or in the United States or in Singapore. So it's divided from low risk, cash and deposits, to low return, to high risk and high return, such as global equities and alternatives. So we don't have time to discuss each one of them. Just take a photo. It's easily in Google. You can easily research it. Okay. But all I can say is on the upper left are your low risk, low return products. And on the lower right are your higher risk and higher return products. The basic asset classes are fixed income, equities, and alternative products. Let's start with fixed income. Fixed income, by its nomenclature, means you put in an amount and the interest rate can be fixed or floating. So let's choose fixed. And therefore, it also has a maturity date, the date at which, barring any credit default, you get back your principal plus the interest due. And by issuer, it's divided into government issued and corporate issued. By interest rate, it's defined as fixed or floating. Floating interest rate, it is repriced periodically. It can be repriced every quarter or every 6 months or annually. And so when interest rates are rising, what do? You do a laddering strategy. Icha-chop-chop mo so that every month may maturity ka, the whole pie is divided into different maturity dates so that every month you can invest it at a higher rate. Now, when interest rates are going down, you want to lock it at the high. So to lock it at the high, you look for tenors that are longer than your usual 30 days. You look for 180 days, 364 days, or 2-year, 3-year, or 5-year lock. Okay? And that will give you definitely a rate or a yield higher than your usual 30-day. We show here an example, what we call our peso money market fund. It's a money market fund. So what's so great about it? The 3 advantages of our peso money market fund is, number 1, it has no holding period, meaning you can withdraw it, you can sell it any day. Number 2, when you sell it, because there's no holding period, there are no pre-termination penalties. Number 3, you're credited on the same day, meaning if you sell it in the morning, let's say 10 to 11 o'clock, your account will be credited by 4 to 5 o'clock before the branch closes. And therefore, by 12 or by 2 o'clock, you can already issue a check to pay for a bill that's due soon. And then when you look at the returns, it's better than your 1-year rolling peso time deposit rate. How are we able to do that? Because we act on our views, no? We don't do the usual 30-day, 30-day. Okay, as I said, when you think interest rates are about to go down, we lock it in already. We go for the longer tenor. The same holds true for the dollar money market fund. Okay, again, there's no holding period, no pre-termination penalties. You're credited before the day is over. So it's good for investors who don't know what to do, number 1. It's good when you have a business, but you're not sure if you're ready to expand your business. Okay? So it's a parking vehicle. Okay? It is not a solution. It is just a temporary parking vehicle. The BDO short-term fund does very well when interest rates are being cut by the Bangko Sentral. So it did very well in 24 and 2025. But now that the BSP is raising interest rates, I would prefer the peso money market fund for now. And then, for those of you who are retired, like si Tani, who's just traveling the world, or about to retire, investing in corporate bonds makes sense. Why? Because at your age, you are what I call LOI. You should be living on interest. And to live on interest, it's not enough that you are in savings account or time deposit. Corporate bonds, investing in corporate bonds allows you to earn a coupon or a yield higher than inflation, savings account, and time deposit. On the left chart, the yellow line is your time deposit rate. And you will see that the coupon of these tenors, 3, 5, 7, and 10, are way above the 30-day time deposit. But in lending, the main risk is credit default, the risk that you will not be paid back your principal. And therefore, to mitigate that risk, we have to limit ourselves to the strongest companies, number one. Number two, in times of an economic slowdown, avoid vulnerable sectors like property. And number three, because of the uncertainty in the world and locally and the economic slowdown, we cannot invest too long. Okay? So keep the tenor short. Keep the maturity date short. So how short? I would look at 1.5 to 5 years. Those that invest in 10 and 20 years are my long-term fund investments, okay? Such as insurance, okay? Or retirement money, meaning I am very sure that they will not need all the funds in the next 3 years. And therefore, part of the portfolio is invested in the long term, 10 to 20 years. But not all of you have 20 years to live, right? And therefore, again, we go back to your time or age. Yeah. So the younger you are, again, the more flexible is the strategy because you can get into long-term investments. If you are 60 or 70 years old, definitely 20 years is not for you. And maybe even 10 years is too risky at this time. Investing in equities. Investing in equities, the data shows, makes sense over a long period of time. Any long-term strategy, any long-term period, time horizon, concludes that equities always did better than fixed income or savings account or time deposit rate. The exception probably is in the Philippine Stock Exchange, where over the last 3, 5, 7, and 10 years, it has lagged behind regional markets like the US, Europe, Taiwan, for several reasons. No? But in general, foreign funds which came here, 10 billion worth dollars, which entered the Philippines towards the end of the GMA period to the start of the Pinoy period, practically left, and less than $1 billion is left behind. So those outflows, the selling of foreign fund managers, has somehow depressed share prices. So while many of you are not invested in the stock market, I just show examples of the products out there. Since the Philippines right now is very cheap, there's a mega sale going on. The Philippines today is cheaper than the Asian financial crisis of 97, 98. And the global financial crisis of 2008, there's a mega sale. It's very cheap. But it could be cheap for a reason. And when you look at the performance, it's negative. Nevertheless, for those that want to get into local equities, getting into an equity index fund will be the simplest way. Wherever the index goes, this fund will go. But it's negative. Our dividend fund shows that when the market was negative, our fund was positive. Why is that? Because we list down the high dividend paying stocks and we buy more of them, such as Meralco or Metrobank or DMCI or Semirara or your telcos, Globe and PLDT. That's how we've made this fund generate positive returns at a time wherein the whole market was in the negative. But that's like Consuelo de Bobo di ba? Parang negative pa rin 'yan, di ba? So, one way of doing better than the local equities is going offshore, you know. But before we even look at offshore, we have to distinguish between what is a UITF, Unit Investment Trust Fund, a mutual fund, MF, or the stock market. Okay? So investing directly in the stock market, you need a stock broker. Okay? You need a broker account. So you can buy directly into BDO or Globe or SM Investments or ICTSI. The problem is if you were not trained to do stock picking, this can be a daunting task. And so the alternative would be to look at funds, a UITF or a mutual fund. The difference is in a mutual fund is a listed legal entity with the SEC. And so you are buying shares. And each time you buy and sell, there is an entry fee, an exit fee, and a switching fee. A UITF rides on the legal entity of the bank. So it is like just a department. So you are buying not shares into the company, you are buying units of participation. Okay? The UITF is probably the most cost effective because all you pay is the management fee, which is already built into the price. So when you get in, there is a price. When you get in, there's another price. And the difference between your exit price and your entry price is your gain or loss. Okay?